na?
Nisam Bula Vinaka sir, and to my fellow colleague Bula. Today my friend and I will be presenting on our virtual teaching on lesson plan 3. My name is Sahil Pravishek and my partner's name is Shavin Lal. I will be doing today. We will be doing our virtual teaching as a pair, and it will be based on lesson plan 3. I will be introducing the introductory part of the lesson plan together with the development part, whereas Shavin will be taking the class activity and the conclusion part. So to begin with, the topic of our lesson today is the principles of two-stroke engines. Engines and machines, they play a major role in a farmer's farm nowadays. So it is very important for students to know some of the basic principles of the farm machines and engines. Engines and machines on farm, they help the farmer in many ways, such as it helps them in labor, reduces the cost of labor. Together, it helps save time of the farmers. It is a must for students to know the basic principles of the farm machines, which includes the two-stroke and four-stroke engines. This lesson mainly focuses on the two-stroke engines, whereas the previous lessons before this lesson was about four-stroke engines. So firstly, the topic, it's principles of a two-stroke engine. It is derived from a year 13 agricultural science textbook. Objectives. The objectives of this lesson is to identify some examples of locally used machines, which is the cognitive level. Next is to discuss operations of two-stroke engine, the cytomotor level. And third objective is to relate and differentiate between two-stroke engine and four-stroke engines, which is the affective domain. Moving on to terminology. The first term here is a fuel injector, which is a part of two-stroke engine. It sprays the fuel into the combustion chamber at the end of the compression stroke. It is fitted on the cylinder head. Note, in a two-stroke engine cycle, the induction and compression stroke occur at the same time during the upward movement of the piston. This is the first stroke of a two-stroke engine. Ignition and exhaust take place during the downward movement of the piston. This is the second stroke. The second stroke in the two-stroke engines have no inlet and outlet valves, but ports or openings on the walls of the cylinder, which allows two strokes to happen at once as the piston passes the respective ports. Icebreaker of this lesson, my colleague Shavin. So on your point of view, which vehicle would you like to use for your farm?
Sahil, of course, the third one, I would say.
All right, that's your choice. So my choice would be the first one. Thank you. Moving on to our next slide. So this is the development part of our lesson. So the first slide says of the development part says what is a two-stroke engine? A two-stroke or a two-stroke cycle engine is a type of internal combustion engine that completes a power cycle with two strokes, up and downward movement. The piston during one power cycle, this power cycle being completed in one revolution of the crankshaft. Moving on to the principles of a two-stroke engine. The first principle is the induction and combustion stroke. A partial vacuum is aerated in the crankcase as the piston proceeds to move up induction of fuel and air mixture into the piston passes through the inlet port. The piston moves further up, compressing the fuel and air mixture. The deflector on the top of the piston keeps the fuel and air mixture towards the side of the spark plug. The induction and compression stroke has taken place. The second principle is the power and exhaust stroke. The piston is at the top of the compression stroke and is about to move downwards. Fuel and air mixture is ignited by the spark plug, producing a power stroke sending the piston downwards. As the piston deflector deflects the burnt gases towards the direction of the exhaust port. The exhaust gases escape through the exhaust pipe as the piston passes through the exhaust port. The power and exhaust stroke has taken place. The next cycle resumes, which means that the induction and compression stroke again starts. Next slide is the differentiation between the two-stroke and the four-stroke engine. Two-stroke engine has 3 ports, whereas four-stroke engine has 2 valves. Two-stroke engine, the piston is a deflector type. Four-stroke engine has a cylindrical type piston. Two-stroke engine power is produced at every second stroke of movement of the piston. Four-stroke engine power is produced in every 4 stroke of the movement of the piston. Two-stroke occur in 1 cycle to produce power. Four-stroke occur in 1 cycle to produce power. Two-stroke oil from the crankcase mixes with the fuel and keeps the engine moving parts lubricant. The crankcase is airtight and oil is in this section, lubricates the engine moving parts but does not mix with the fuel, which happens in the four-stroke engine. Now I would like to call on my colleague Shavin Lal to continue with the class activity and the conclusion part. Shavin.
Okay, thank you, Sahil. Moving on to the class activity for today's class, I have prepared 3 questions, and those I have displayed it on the chart. So before I go into chart, it says that students are to work in group of 4 and discuss the following questions. Each question is worth 3 marks, right? Students are given 10 minutes to complete the activity. Okay, Sahil, can you make me a co-host so that I can display the chart on my screen?
Yeah. You are the host now.
Okay. Okay, you can see me, Sahil.
Yes, Shavin, I can see you.
Okay, just give a second. Okay, you can see the chart clearly.
Yes, Shavin, I can see the chart clearly.
Okay, so the first question, it says, discuss the principle of two-stroke engine, right? And the principle of two-stroke engine. In this diagram, you can say that the two-stroke engine diagram is here, right?
Yes.
So this one is a spark plug. The exhaust port is here, right? Hope I can I assume that it you can see clearly, Sahil.
Yes, yes, Shavin, we can see.
Right. The exhaust port is here, and the inlet port opens from here, right? And these are the transfer port, right? Transfer ports. Right. So let me discuss the question. It said discuss the principle of two-stroke engine, right? As my friend Sahil have already discussed, because these questions are nothing new for you students, because these questions have been directly lifted from the notes, right? So induction and compression stroke, right? The principle of the two-stroke engine are the first one is the induction and compression stroke. It says a particular vacuum is a partial vacuum is created in the crankshaft as the piston proceed to move up, right? The vacuum is created and piston starts to move upwards, right? And it says induction of fuel into air mixture as the piston passes the inlet port. The inlet port is here, right? As the piston passes the inlet port, the air and fuel comes inside, right? And that's the place air and fuel starts to mix up, right? The third point, it says the piston moves further up and compressing the fuel and air mixture, right? So here the piston moves further up and it starts to compress the fuel and air here, right, class? Okay. The last point says the deflector on the top of the piston keeps the fuel and air mixture towards the side of the spark plug. The induction and compression stroke has taken place, right? The induction has and compression stroke has taken place, right? The second part says power and exhaust stroke, right? Power and exhaust stroke, sorry. The piston is at the top of the compression stroke and it's about to move down, right? As the compression takes place, right? As soon as, remember class, as soon as the spark plug going to ignite, the compression will start to come down, right? The fuel and air mixture is ignited by the spark plug, right? The fuel and air mixture will be ignited by the spark plug here, right? Producing a power stroke sending the piston downwards. So here, as soon as it's ignite, the power will produce here and the piston will move downwards, right, class? Downwards, at the piston deflector deflects the bent gas towards the direction of exhaust port, right? Exhaust port is here. As soon as the piston will come down, the burning fuel will be, the burning fuel will come out from exhaust port, right? And the exhaust gas escape through the exhaust pipe as the piston passes the exhaust port. The power and exhaust stroke has taken place, right? As soon as it will come out, the power and exhaust port has, the power and exhaust stroke has taken place here, right? And this fourth one says the next cycle resumes. So this will continue again and again, right? Okay, the second question, it says state the two difference between a two-stroke engine and a four-stroke engine, right? The two strokes, the two difference. The two difference are two-stroke engine got 3 ports, right? Two-stroke engine got 3 ports compared to four-stroke, where four-stroke got only have 2 valves, right? Remember class, the two-stroke got 3 ports and the four-stroke got 2 valves, right? You should be able to make difference between ports and valves, right class? And the second one, it says piston is a deflector type, right? In two-stroke engine, the piston is a deflector type, whereas in four-stroke engine, it has a cylindrical type piston, right? So at least class in the notes, it's I think around 4 or 5 difference between two-stroke and four strokes has been given, but at least you should know 2, right, for each, right class? And the third question, it says list some example of farm machine which uses a two-stroke engine, right? So we all know that these are well-known machines which are used on farm, but we always make mistake, which is two-stroke and four-stroke. So the two-stroke engines are used in motor mowers, brush cutters, chainsaw, and rotovators, right? There are many more class. There are many more which you will get to know later as you'll go deeper in the notes, right class?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that was for the class activity, and for conclusion, let me sit and just do the conclusion for today's class. Right? Okay, Sahil, can you just again share the screen for me? Move on to conclusion, please. The last slide, I think, is right. The conclusion, it says the presentation has been prepared and to assist students to gain knowledge on the difference of 2-stroke and 4-stroke engine, which is usually in everyday lives today. Farm machine is an important factor which needs to be considered while running a large scale production farm. Students have seen most farm machines such as tractor, trucks, harvesters, etc. Right? It is very important to have a knowledge of how those machines which are used in the farm. This lesson discusses the principle of 2-stroke engine, which includes grass cutter, chainsaw, lawn mowers, etc. Right? And class note at the end. Note homework. Read through the lesson plans because we will be having a short quiz on the different stroke engine. As I have said, all the questions will be directly lifted from the notes. So in every day, whenever I'll be starting the class, we will have a short quiz before we start up our class, right? Just a 5-minute short quiz before we start our class, everyday class. So go home, read through the notes, whatever we'll be discussing in the class, read through the notes. Again, next week when we will have the class, we'll have a short quiz on that, right? Okay, that's all for today's. Any question from you, Sahil?
No, Shavit, all good.
All good, right?
So that's also for our presentation today on lesson plan 3. Hope we have done our best to gain marks for this presentation. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shavit.
Thank you, Sahil. Good day.